This is actually part of what we're talking about, and Musau Mule was just telling us that in Kenya there's an average of 2,500 per voter. That is a colossal amount that we shouldn't even be able to afford in this economy, and nobody questions where this money is coming from. Prof, and this is what we're talking about, the impact of money in the final outcome. Is that the reason why you think there are 3 main horses and the other 24 do not stand a chance?
You see, first in terms of the cost of an election, we spend so much, then do such a short job. We can't just release results in a simple way. Everybody, you are talking about polling stations being changed 2-3 days before an election. When Wazungu say we are disorganized, they could have been having a point. Ken Okoth died quite a while back. I think in July or something like that.
Yes, July.
The writs were issued quite a while back. These guys didn't know that at the time of election, this Raila Center and the other secondary schools would be used for exams. They knew that. They couldn't do a simple thing like that. So, but when it comes to money and elections, of course, we have become a country where people steal, we applaud them and elect them. So if you want to become an MP, a governor, first you must steal. Get sufficient money with which to bribe voters, and then you go in. It is sad, but that is the reality on the ground. In Kibra, for example, you would be, you should know that it was ODM from the word go. And it was, whoever would be nominated would be an ODM automatic candidate, and winner for Kibra. Because Kibra is ODM, ODM is Kibra, and so on and so forth. Then Owalo came in with a Luya card, you know. He really was a man to win at that time. But you know, from nowhere, Mariga has found his way, and he's just there at the top. Is it because of him as an individual or the party that he's getting? You see, the Jubilee Party is not visible in Kibra, like somebody said. It's not Jubilee Party, it's William Ruto. And this is obvious. We can say it in broad daylight because I stay around there, and you see streams of people heading to his current residence, and you see stuff happening and so on and so forth, because I'm a resident of Kibra. So it is William Ruto. It is Mariga. Mariga has some little money, and I think, who knows, maybe Ruto could also support him. Right. Really, you can see money, you can feel money when you go to Kibra. I have seen money myself. You can see it, you know, you can smell it. And therefore, it is important in an election. I very much doubt if there wasn't money, Mariga would even have featured anywhere in the discourse. Frankly, do you agree? He could be among those flower girls. Franklin, do you agree? If it wasn't for the muscle backing that Mariga has received from the DP, Mariga would just be what Professor is saying, another flower girl in the election. And I'd also like to know what kind of an impact would that have on democracy, because at this particular point we can't even talk about individuals because campaigns period was closed, so we can't say so and so about this and that. I'm just wondering about the impact of money on democracy itself, because then do you choose based on what you've been given? What does that do?
Thank you. In an ideal democracy, being elected or being or voting, you know, is a really revered civic duty. But in our country, because of the money, and not just money, but illicit money flowing in our political campaigns, is a real threat to that reverence of that civic duty. And it is not just in defense of the politicians and the political parties. This is not just a problem of the politicians looting and buying votes, but it's actually a cultural issue that we have to address, because the politicians have understood that the electorate have turned them from being oversight authorities, from being representatives of the people, from their legislative role, to basically being social welfare dispensers. That you're bound to be re-elected and elected or win an election as a first time when you have, and you have seen the kind of questions that Mariga has been facing. You are earning 8 million shillings in such a capital. What have you done for us? as if, Trevor, you must share your package from Royal Media with some particular people for you to have, you know, a responsibility in society. I think it's absurd to just discuss this issue from the political leaders or the political candidates, you know, perspective. Kenyans have to shun this culture of turning elected leaders into social welfare dispensers. That's one. Number two, a constituency that has had a progressive member of parliament in the shape of the late Ken Okoth, you would have expected that the Kibra community would then say, we cannot take anything because we have a standard. But that it has come to the level that money has played a role, and I would agree with Herman, Professor Manyora, that actually some of the candidates, and I say it out of experience, as CMD we have organized forums in Kibra, particularly concerned with the question of electoral violence. And we had opportunity to interact with candidates beyond the three, and actually on record that the three so-called top candidates never turned up. And I have had a feeling of the other candidates whom I'll not mention that I feel would really fit in, you know, Ken Okoth's shoes much better in terms of how they grasp the issues, how they articulate these issues. But because they don't have that war chest, and they do not have the big man syndrome fronting them, then they have not made it to your headlines as well, other than today that we can see their names, you know, running on screen, and Trevor eloquently.
As other runs.
So the issue of money and the issue of the culture that we have cultivated ourselves.
So why do we entertain democracy if money is a deciding factor in elections?
Because it is the least worst form of governance that we can have. Anything else is worse off. What we need to do is, for instance, push our elected leaders, and the media has a responsibility to set the agenda, push our elected leaders to relook at the campaign financing policy and legal framework, for instance. Pass, look, the way the law is set up today, an analysis of the policy and the legislation indicates that it's a weak framework. It cannot be able to nail the problems that we have around campaign financing. But we need to look at the proposed amendments. I'm sure it's going through, I think, Honorable Shakil Shabir, who's the chair of the Anti-Corruption Caucus of Parliamentarians. And this is a priority law passed in 2013, never effected in 2013, postponed in 2017. The challenge is that a majority of those MPs are actually poor, but they cannot be able to push this agenda on the floor of the House so that you level the playing field. We need to regulate money in our politics. We need proper political education to get voters of Kibra and elsewhere in this country understand that we must run away from transactional politics. We must turn away from, making our elected leaders social welfare dispensers. Every weekend, there's a funeral they have to attend and contribute. There's a wedding they have. That is not their duty. Let elected leaders do their work.
That law alone will not count for much. So long as people still steal, without consequences. So long as there's money moving around. So long as there are no regulations and laws governing the flow of cash in the country. So long as you can buy a house from me at 80 million and you register it without any government agency, without any red flag. I mean, Trevor, just walking to a registrar of property, whatever it is, of land, registrar of land, and you are registering you at 1.2, when you say 120,000 acres you bought somewhere in Narok. And nobody asks you where you got the money from. Until you get to a point where this country and the government knows what's going on in terms of transactions, then even if you make that law, it's a waste of time. Because in countries where this kind of things work, if you went to a store or to a shop and bought something cash, just 20,000 shillings, everybody will be shocked. How?
Where's the money?
50,000 they may not allow you. You cannot just walk to America in a shop and buy something worth $2,000, which is 200,000 shillings. But here we buy things worth hundreds of millions in cash. So until you organize those kind of things, even if you came up with a law stopping or regulating election financing, it will not go far.
I agree to an extent, but there is some cleanup being done. And the biggest challenge that we face, Trevor, is that the political and economic elites in this country are one and the same. So you're expecting the same guys who wielding political power to turn around to put in place pieces of legislation that hinders the economic maneuvering to still, you know, and you know, ceding ground on economically is also ceding ground in terms of political power. So we're in a country that we're in a moral crisis. We are in a political leadership crisis.
How do we clean that up?
How we clean it up is that we need to relook at our institutions and ask ourselves, are they properly set up? Are they manned by the right individuals? I mean, the institutions that, for instance, that are working today, whose leadership has been questioned all over and over again because of how the people that are leading those institutions were selected to lead those institutions. And unless this demand is demand driven from bottom up, I think the few elites that control the economy and control the political power will continue taking us for a ride.
Let me just chip in. You say how we'll sort it out. We can't sort out that way. There are only two ways to sort out. And if you look at history, it will bear me out. A guy comes on the scene, happens on the scene, Thomas Sankara. It has to be a person who takes state power. It will be lucky for us if it is through democracy, a democratic process. For others, it has always been through the gun and other upheavals and war and so on and so forth. A guy comes up, one man. You know, one man in State House will change everything in this country. You'll wake up and you'll know you're in Kenya. The other way, and I think that's where this country is heading, things get to a point where they cannot hold. The contradictions that are going on in this country, the level of poverty, the impunity, is going to get to a point where things will just burst.
So, Professor, for you, it's either a revolution or we get someone in State House who will change the game. That's where the country is heading. All right.
Not long from now, this country, something will break.
Okay. I think for me, from where I stand, the question of citizen agency is key. Unless I would go the second option, where we're saying, can citizen rise in this country? Is there enough? Can we be able to get to a level of citizen agency where you can actually be able to ask questions? Because as my fellow panelists are saying, this country is going down, and unless people stand up and get counted in terms of fighting for the rights, fighting for their freedoms, then you're not going to be having the kind of these elections. Elections are supposed to be held on a level playing ground, as Frank is saying, where we are all equal. Those 24 candidates are supposed to go out there believing that they have a chance. But if you go to skew things in favor of a few individuals, or and this is something which is even known by those elites, so that things are already so skewed that if we go to Kebra, we know it's a 3-horse race. Then what about the rest of the people? Why do they even want to participate?
We allow for a few donkeys.
It's like an allowance. It's it's an orchestra which is being done. So, in my view, we need to walk through the path towards creating such a citizen agency. And I again support Frank when he says that the media and other players have a hand in this. You create an environment where we can't just tolerate some of the things which are going on. And after that, once we set up institutions, then we get to respect them. Because the other problem that we have in this country is that we don't respect institutions. Why the biggest problem in Kenya is about trust is because Kenyans don't trust the systems, don't trust the institutions.
Whereas citizen agency sounds really good, but how do you tell that mama in Kibra who knows that this 100 shillings being given to her is the difference between a child sleeping hungry and her voting? How can you stand up to her and tell her not to take that money?
I think in the first instance, nearly all of those people know it is wrong. In the first instance, even before we move from that point of saying that we want to tell the mama whether this is wrong or not, they already know it's wrong. If you ever attempted to take them towards a law enforcement angle, they would run away very fast because they know they're doing the wrong thing. So there's a moral issue that still has to be revisited.
Yeah. So hold that thought for a bit. We have Babu Owino Embakasi MP speaking right now in Kibra. Let's cross over and listen into what the concerns are.
Hii Kibra leo kama Imran atatangazwa kama mshindi, hakuna mtu yote atatoka Kibra.
And that is also another concern. We just got him at the wrong particular point. He was saying that if a particular candidate is not announced as a winner, then there'll be a problem. Isn't that in itself excitement?
Yes,
that is incitement.
That's why we.
You see now, this is a country we are talking about, and you know that's what I talk about, impunity. He'll just get away with it.
Professor, let me ask you. Let me attach the Mandi conversation to also trust and leadership and what you've just seen. We've seen the trends of what happens when Kenya goes for an election. More specifically, what happens in Kibra and certain and low-income neighborhoods. Would you be surprised, or should we expect any chaos to happen after results are made?
It's unfortunate, but it could be true. You see, like I said before, ODM is Kibra and Kibra is ODM. It's unfortunate that if Imran were to lose, or if he loses, let me say, because he can lose, and somebody else gets, especially like somebody like Marega, there will be reactions you'll expect. Not so nice reactions. But I hope government is aware of this, the intelligence is aware, and they should be able to move in. And but basically, we should advise our people. If Imran loses, he will lose because a better guy has won, not better because he's better in that sense, but because he was a better politician. Let's just put it like that.
But also,
a better Kenyan politician.
Let me say something else about money. You know, we have the tendency to believe that these small people are stupid, or they don't know. They know. Why would they take money? They will take money from you because anything else you tell them is useless. They know. They can't believe you when you say you'll do this 1, 2, 3. They know you can't. First of all, how can you do anything good in Kibra? The first thing you will do is to remove Kibra. Raise it down, because human beings in the 21st century cannot live in Kibra or Korogosho or Mukuru Kwanjenga. The first thing is to raise down all those structures and start by putting people in habitats that are 21st century habitats.
But we've seen the government trying to do that.
So when you go to Kibra and tell people I'm going to do something, they just laugh at you. They know you won't do anything. Even if you clean a few of those, what do you call them, brain existence. What are you talking about? If somebody came and found you near, you live in a toilet, if you live in a pit latrine for whatever reason, you are so badly off you can only be in a pit latrine, and then the latrine is dirty. So I say, I want to help you. I want to put some disinfectant in the toilet and clean it. Then you continue staying there. That is not true. That's not right. You see, they are not fools. They know you will not do those things you are saying. Kwa hivyo ukitoa 500 nasikia ni ngiri sasa. Sio nasikia hata nimeona.
Frank and Musawa looking at you.
Mtu anachukua kangiri yake anaweka anaenda. Mambo mengine ni baadaye.
You know, Professor, as much as things are bad, I think there's been some ray of hope in Kibra, epitomized by the former member of parliament. And if the people of Kibra cannot rise up to the quality and standard that we are exposed to by the former member of parliament, then we're in a deeper problem than we expect. I think there is some level of hope in Kibra as it has been, which needs to be played out. But the key questions that we should be looking at, Trevor, is, yes, Prof says we need strong character in State House. We need or either revolution.
But how do we get that strong character in State House?
It again goes back to empowering the people to make the right choices. The question asked, how do we get the Mamamboga, refuse the 100 bob or realize that the 100 bob that they're being given is a problem for themselves in a few days to come. I think that is the conversation that we need to clearly have, that they initiate, the voters in this country initiate corruption. Because where is this money that you're being bribed to, engage in a civic duty that you should voluntarily coming from? And how do you expect that this money will be gotten back by the person who's giving you? I think that if we understand how corruption evolves in this country, then the voter will really understand that it is not the office of the president, it is them who are the kingpins of corruption, that they initiate it and then they lose at the end of the day. Worse off is that they even set standards. You will hear that Professor Manyora is a first-time candidate. We will take some little cash from him, but Mule Misao has been in this game for a while, so his price tag is this much. And these are things that we have to speak to. The corruption is not about the PSS, it's not about the office of the president. It is about the 150 shillings that the mamambogas accept to be bought off to vote for a particular candidate. Then you get some CDF money of 3,000, 5,000 that is not helpful, that you get shoddy contracts, doing roads, doing schools, and such things. That is a conversation we need to have until
with Mama Mboga.
Until when we have Kenyans understand that they are the problem, they will not be able to solve them. Because the leaders that we have are actually a reflection of who we are. I don't think we can get a strong man of Sankara quality amongst us today unless we cushion the next generations.
So we get the leaders we deserve. Mule, I'll come to you in just a bit. I have to take a quick break, but I'll have to react on that issue of people get the leaders they deserve. Right after this short break here on Daybreak. And we're talking about the Kibra by-elections. It's happening right now. Polls open at 6. We're about 3 hours into it. And there's been a bit of an incident at Mashimoni there, where a person has been arrested there for alleged voter bribery. There's a bit of fracas there as well, but generally everything else is just fine. The 118,658 registered voters are expected to take the polls to elect out of 24 candidates who their next leader will be. See you in just a bit.